Hi, everyone. It's Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am here with Tony nominee AJ Shively from Paradise Square. Congrats. It's your first ever nomination, AJ. And walk us through what has this been like post nomination? What have you been feeling? What is that like to now be a nominee?
Well, it still really hasn't sunk in. Uh, it's wild. I mean, I've worked really hard on the show, but I've worked really hard on every show I do. And you know, so if you've seen the show, it's a pretty dance heavy role, and I did not grow up dancing, and dancer was always like the third of the three on my actor, singer, dancer list. Um, and like I'm still trying to come to terms with what I'm doing in the show, and that I'm like actually achieving that, and to be recognized for that work is makes it that much more special. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, I was told that you had not really danced before this, which is
No,
insanity to me.
it's
That's insane because that's all you're doing really
yeah.
in
I feel
this.
like I came out of the pandemic into an alternate timeline. Like something happened. It's like somebody rolled the dice to see who gets the pizza, and all of a sudden I'm in. That was a Community reference, if anybody. That's pretty niche. But yeah, when I joined the project in 2018 in the workshop phase, um, obviously the show was very different, and the team was like, there might be a moment of Irish dancing. Are you comfortable with that? And I graduated from musical theater school at the University of Michigan, and got my stamp Mover Plus, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, I should be able to handle that. You know, it cut forward a few years, and I'm doing like 5 minute long dance solos, and it's insanity. Um, yeah, I really, I just can't believe it.
And so is that because for anyone who has not yet seen Paradise Square, you have, I mean, dance is central to your character. There's a dance competition where you are one of the, main people in it to win it. So was that how you got into this with, how does a non-dancer get such a heavy dance role?
you know, I, I really don't know. Luck, I guess. It kind of it's been a trend, I guess, in my career where I'll show up to a gig, like for Bright Star, for instance.
Mhm.
They decided that they wanted to add some movement to Hannah Ellis's Asheville. Um, and so then that turned into some kind of like modern dance. Josh Rose just worked with me. I grew up doing martial arts, so I have a body awareness, and I definitely appreciate dancing. I watch So You Think You Can Dance, and but one of the reasons I was able to enjoy it so much is that it had nothing to do with what I did, so I was able to just kind of be entertained by it. But yeah, the choreographers kind of I've been really lucky. They just kind of put movement on my body and push me. And Bill T's whole artistic outlook is the best art happens beyond the lines that you draw for yourself. Um, and I'm really grateful to him and Moises for trusting that I could learn. And I'm extremely grateful. It could not, none of this could have happened without our Irish choreographers, Jason Aramis and Garrett Coleman, who not only created choreography that makes it look like I know what I'm doing, but they make me look expert, but it's just spending countless hours one-on-one in rehearsal studio with me, um, teaching me how to Irish step dance, and not just physically how to do the movements, but mentally how to get through a long solo. They're both world champion Irish dancers. They both, starred in Riverdance and Love the Dance, and um, kind of they've literally they taught me everything I know about being a dancer: the mindset, the physicality of it, how to pace yourself, how to properly warm up. Um, yeah, I owe everything to those two guys. Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take from when you found out it was going to, you're going to have to do this? How long did you have to sort of practice and try and perfect this?
Well, I've had years too, so that's nice to have the time. So I joined in 2018 in the workshop phase, and that's kind of when I started learning the basics, and it was very basic at that point. And the show went to Berkeley Rep in 2019, and that's when it started expanding. We had basically a workshop again before the rehearsal process. We rehearsed, I think, for 6 weeks in the rehearsal studio at Berkeley, and that's when the role started, the dance requirement to the role started expanding. Um, and that was like the physically painful part because I had to grow the muscles. Like there's a little tiny muscle on the inside of your calf called the posterior tibialis, and all it does is wiggle your big toe. But when you're Irish dancing, your heels never come down, so your big toe is pushing your entire body weight. Um, I had to grow the facility to be able to do it. And we were originally slated to come to New York in the fall of 2020, but obviously that didn't happen. Um, so when we got word in, I think it was late spring of 2021 that it was going to happen again, I immediately went back to the studio and started stretching.
As it, because you do so much dancing and vocally in this show. As someone who dances is fairly new to you, how do you keep up? What do you do to keep up your endurance for this 8 show week run?
Yeah, well, I mean, the endurance kind of takes care of itself because you have to do the show. The show's a marathon. It's nice because it doesn't ever stop, so there's no moment to like sit down and feel tired for me in the show. And I just have to make sure I stretch every day. I start warming up about 2 hours before curtain. We took a COVID pause because there was an outbreak in our company, and during that week, I was at the gym every day, wearing my N95 and just making sure I still have like got my splits on both
Mhm.
sides. I'm still warm. Um, trying to sweat as much as I can, keep the heart rate going. Yeah, it's just I think I had a ballet teacher at the University of Michigan who said every day you don't stretch, it takes 3 days to get it back. And so like the terror of that lives in the back of my mind with this show. And I also think about kind of the greats from the golden age of Broadway, where there was no amplification. I think about Mary Martin training for The Sound of Music. She would sing that role while boxing.
Mm.
Um, and there's another story. I can't remember who it was, but somebody else would another taxing vocal role would train on the treadmill or on the elliptical machine. Just like yeah, it's so yeah. You have to. That was something. Our associate choreographer and dance captain, um, Chloe Davis, helped me out with too. Just finding the musicality of the breath within the movement. Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, all that seems, that might be sort of a newer art form for you to
Yeah.
dive into. But is there anything in your character within Owen that you feel most connected to? Is there any aspects of yourself in there?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons this project was so attractive to me is this is how and when my family came to America from Ireland. Um, so, they came in through a different port and wound up in Indiana. So just, flip of a coin, that could have been Owen. Owen could have been my, what, 3, 4 times great grandfather. Um, so that it just felt, I don't know, important to me. I hear when we heard our first sits probe, I hear that Irish whistle and I hear that fiddle, and it like does something to my DNA. It resonates so deeply within me. Um, so that's what initially attracted to me to the project. But then to learn about this period of American history, this moment in American history that I had never heard of before, um, I was astounded that it was true. Um, the characters and like the location, Paradise Square Saloon, didn't actually exist. Nellie Freeman didn't actually exist, but they're all amalgamations of real people, real events. That there was a riot that turned into a race riot in New York City. I had never heard of the draft riots of 1863. I had never heard of this amalgamationist society that existed both in the Five Points and up in Seneca Village, which is where Central Park is now, where people were, living openly, married interracially. There were openly LGBT people. Um, there were born free Black business owners. Um, we just, I just never heard about this culture.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's incredible to learn about. And also kind of the tragic thing is we watch these people who at this point in history where you wouldn't expect it, people of all different backgrounds live in fairly harmoniously. And in this show, we watch them succumb to division. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
what is it like? Kind of, we've had so many conversations over the past 2 years, national conversations over justice and equality. What is it like telling that story right now?
Well, I mean, the relevance of it deepens and shifts as with the news cycle. You know, when we were in rehearsal is when the invasion of Ukraine happened, and the there's a lot about being drafted and going to war, and kind of how vets are treated in the show. Um, and so all of a sudden, all of that text resonated in a different way. Um, you know, fighting for like your home, fighting for something that you so deeply believe in. And then, but recently, you know, the racially motivated shooting up in Buffalo is just, it's what happened in New York. It's
Yeah.
what happened in Manhattan in the 1860s. And my character's journey, I'm a wide-eyed, I'm a recent immigrant, I'm a refugee fleeing the potato famine. I'm very impressionable. Um, One of the first things that happens to Owen when he gets to New York is they announce that there's going to be a draft and he's going to have to go to the front lines of the Civil War. Um, a lot of Irishmen had to sign draft papers to get off the boat to be allowed to go through customs. Um, and uh, you know, similar to a lot of these domestic terrorists that are committing racially inspired acts of violence, with the Reddit boards, there were pamphlets, there were little newspapers that totally influenced the thinking of these impressionable young men. And yeah, Owen gets caught up in it. And it's not until, as is true, I think with a lot of people, it's not until he has a personal stake in it. It's something that he can directly uh, witness, respond to, feel personally about, that he's able to kind of snap out of the spell,
Yeah,
which
it's
I think
very,
it's you know it's happening still. So I think it's an important thing to point at, to be like, look, this is what it was then, this is still what it is.
yeah, very much history repeating itself,
Yeah. Yes.
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
You mentioned before that you had been working on this show for quite some time, and which is common. You had a similar experience with Bright Star, I believe, working on it for many years. And it's a unique format to, I think, Broadway musicals in particular versus other art forms. How does that kind of long development process and being with a character so much, how does that alter your performance over time?
Well, it definitely deepens it. And I think it's also helpful that, like with Bright Star, where I joined in the first workshop of Bright Star, and, you know, Carmen Cusack, who played my spoiler alert, mother, and you know, Stephen Bogardus, who played my adoptive father, like they were in it, we were all in it the whole time together. So those relationships were deeply forged over a long period of time. And it's the same. Sydney had done, I think, one workshop previous to when I joined, but Sydney DuPont and I have been building these characters together for years. And as you said earlier, a lot of our story is told through dance in a like diegetic way. Like the characters themselves are actually dancing, you know, so it's not, we don't have a scene where we become friends. We have a duet, a dance duet where we become friends. And I think, you know, it's one of the benefits of having the time. Um, so grateful that Moises Kaufman, our director, he comes from his own theater company, Tectonic, where they spend a decade building a piece. And to that kind of time to I don't know, settle in with each other. And it's the whole company too. In 2019, before the social justice movement around George Floyd's murder, we sat down, we devoted, Moises had us, allowed us to devote hours of rehearsal time just sitting around speaking to each other as people, about our experiences in the world, to for the white people in the cast to fully try to understand the Black experience, and for the Black people in the cast to hear what like my ancestors went through. I have specific stories. You know, my family, they were indentured servants for 5 years, I think, before they were allowed to actually start their life in America. And just sharing those stories, and so all those tough conversations that the rest of society kind of caught up with in 2020, we were having those conversations in rehearsal. And I think that's why when you see the show, I think the strongest sense you get is that sense of community. This company is just so tightly forged. It's the biggest cast I've ever been in. It's the smartest cast I've ever been in. It's the most capable, the most talented, the most just game ready group of people I've ever been associated with. And that, I think, was forged in the times where we weren't necessarily rehearsing the steps. We weren't learning the music. We were sitting as a company, hashing out these issues, discussing all of these difficult, dense, multifaceted issues. Not solving anything, but like, you know, speaking to it.
Yeah, important. And now
Yeah,
you and Sydney get to share in
I
a
know.
category. You're nominated alongside each other, which must be
But yeah. So
really
like,
cool.
we're going to, you know, all the events and stuff together. It's great. It's great. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And speaking of Bright Star, coincidentally, both you and Carmen are nominated this
I
year. Were
know.
you able to kind of take in each other's work this year?
I was able to see, Flying Over Sunset. She was just so wonderful in that. And she's out in LA, so she hasn't been able to see Paradise Square yet, but she's gonna see it when she comes back out for the Tony Awards.
Yeah. Well, before I have to let you go, I think I'll ask you that. What are you most excited? This is your first time as a nominee. What are you most excited for about the Tony Awards experience?
Oh man. I don't know. I don't know about like the ceremony. Like, you know, I've never done it before. I've been asking all my friends who've gone through this before, and they're like, just enjoy it. And I'm like, yes, I am. I think we have on Tuesday the nominees luncheon, which is just the nominees having lunch together, and there's no press there. There's no like work to do. It's really just a get to know you kind of thing, and I'm really looking forward to that. To you know, see my friends who I already know who are also nominated, which is crazy because there are so many tried and true legends of musical theater being recognized this year that I'm so excited about. People like Kenita Miller, I'm just like who have always done excellent work. Just I think that's what I'm excited about now. Tuesday, that luncheon, being able to like chit chat with these legends.
Well, it's very exciting. Can't wait for you to experience that and for the Tonys. It's a fantastic job in this show. If you're out there watching, please subscribe to Gold Derby. Stay with us throughout this Broadway season. And thank you, AJ.
Thank you so much.